Yo, friends and family, welcome again to yet another episode of the worst relationship advice ever. You definitely should not listen unless this makes sense to you in some way, shape, or form. In today's episode, we'll be looking at common misconceptions that I've heard, people have regarding relationship and relationship health. A lot of this stuff is semantics, all based on how we define words. For example, you have some people who have a particular definition of love, which differs from the biblical definition of love. And so based on their definition of love, they will say certain things that may trigger me a bit. It may make me go, do they really understand what they're saying? And so I'm just here to debunk a couple of these misconceptions because I see how these misconceptions can definitely affect people in a negative way in their relationships. Some of these misconceptions have affected me in a negative way in my relationships. And so I'm now just seeking to help as much of you as possible to let go of these misconceptions so that you can position your heart and your mind to be happy and healthy in relationship, right? So let's jump into it. Common misconceptions. One that I have heard come from different people who have stood in front of a group of people to speak is men don't need love, they only need respect. Nah. That's definitely a misconception. Let's take this from a biblical standpoint. So while I understand what a person may be trying to convey when they say that men only need respect, they don't need love, it is false, right? Because respect falls within the group of things that make up what love is. So there's just no way to respect without loving, and there's no love without respect, right? So let us remember that we need to first and foremost focus on the fact that we are Christian, right? So it is our Christian identity that should be the main influencer behind our behaviors, right? So if we are first Christian, it should not be who I am as a husband influencing what I do and what I say over who I am as a Christian. It shouldn't be who I am as a wife that influences what I do and what I say more than who I am as a Christian, a follower of Christ, right? Because we understand that, God is supreme and we are ultimately submitted to Him, right? So on that basis, loving our neighbor is the greatest command, and our husband or our wife is our closest neighbor. So wives, loving your husband is of paramount importance, and you cannot love your husband and not respect him, or you can't respect him and not love. If we look at 1 Corinthians 13, the definition that Paul gives there, it says love does not dishonor others, right? And so in loving your husband, you're not going to dishonor him, right? In serving him, you are honoring him. In speaking highly of him, you're honoring him. In not gossiping about him behind his back, you're honoring him. And at the same time, you're loving him. So the two are intertwined, right? And we as human beings, both men and women, are human beings, both made in the image and likeness of God. It means the same emotions that we experience, women experience as well. And so the same way women want to be treated, for many of us men, we would like to be treated in the same way, right? Now, I do understand that there is masculine energy and feminine energy, and that there is the difference. However, we are human, right? And so we all have the same fingers, the same red blood pumping through our veins, and the same hormones. It's just that within women, there's more progesterone and estrogen, and in men, there's more testosterone, right? And this brings about certain phenotypic traits, right? This brings about certain differences on a genetic level. However, from a spiritual standpoint, our souls are made in the image and likeness of God. Both of us, both male and female. And so just as much we as men, just as much as we need respect, women need respect as well. And just as much as women need love, we need love as well. So yeah, that's debunked. Another misconception is love is not enough. I've heard that a couple times. And when we say love is not enough, I get what the person is trying to say. The person is saying that, hey, the feeling of love, just being in love and wanting to spend time with a person, wanting to go places with a person that you're enamored with is not enough. And I kind of agree with that. But love, in a biblical sense, in the definition that is given in the scriptures, that is definitely enough, because it encompasses all of life. It encompasses finances. It encompasses friendship and intimacy and unwavering commitment. It encompasses respect and whether or not we're going to go to a certain place, whether or not we're going to dress a certain way, whether or not we're going to show up on social media in a certain way, right? Love is intertwined in all of that. And so from that perspective, love is enough. That any act that you are doing outside of the realm of love is more than likely going to be damaging to your relationship. And so you can't separate love from being able to generate the income necessary to take care of yourself and take care of your family. You can't separate love from sex, because within the sexual context, love ought to be expressed, where the two people are giving to one another and receiving from each other, right? Trying to just limit love to the feeling and excluding it from everything else is just not healthy, right? Another misconception, and this is gonna be a bit controversial. May get to a couple comments in the comment section about this, but hey, dating is not necessary to have a happy marriage. Yeah, you don't have to date before getting married. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. And in our current day and age, the culture says it is. The culture says you're supposed to meet somebody, you're supposed to date for a while, and then you get engaged, and then you get married, and then you're supposed to work out after that. However, we've seen, even into this day and age, we've seen people get married after just meeting each other 3 months ago. And then they go on to have 40 years of marriage, and death is what actually separates them. We've seen in the Bible, right? Coming from a biblical perspective. In the Bible, we don't see no dating. We don't see people going to dinner and going to the movies with a chaperone or anything like that. We don't see that, right? Coming from the beginning, where we have Adam and Eve, and we have, Isaac and Rebecca, and we have Rachel and Jacob and Leah, how we see these relationships move from single to married is just like that. Single, them go in a tent, they're married, right? And so when you think about the principles that are laid out in the Bible and that we ought to follow as Christians, do we really need to date a person for 2-3 years before choosing to marry them? And if we're choosing to marry them on the basis that we've been dating them for the past 3 years, is it that now we feel as if, okay, I'm now comfortable with how much I know about this person? And based on what I know about this person, I believe I can have a happy relationship, a happy marriage with this person. But, we as human beings are always evolving, we're always changing. So what if this person changes 6 months into the marriage? What if a belief, a conviction that they had before, they no longer have. Do you know, give up the whole relationship? Do you know, throw in the towel? Do you know, separate, divorce because this person has evolved? I don't think so. God says he hates divorce. And I believe the reason why he says he hates divorce is because marriage is intended to be a tool that God uses to sanctify us and to mold us more and more into the image of Jesus Christ. And the more we are forced, in a sense, to love each other unconditionally, is the more we become like Christ. It's the more we love like he loves. And so imagine meeting somebody and you just have 1 or 2 conversations with them just to ensure that you're both on the same page where Jesus is concerned, and you're both on the same page where your life goals are, your vision. You both want to ensure you're on a similar or the same path, right? That once you've established that you're on the same path, you're like, okay, let's not waste any time. We're attracted to each other. We're on the same path. We both love Jesus. Let's get married. What's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that. Are you surprised? You'd be so surprised to see a relationship that starts on that basis survive all the way through many decades. All because they stopped focusing on all the fluff and all the other additional things, and rather just focus on what is key, what is most important, what needs to be the foundation. I tell you, once that foundation is present and both people are giving and receiving the unconditional love, the grace, the mercy, the friendship, the intimacy, once that loop is happening, I don't see how the relationship is going to fail. And so yeah, dating, in my opinion, for 2-3 years is not necessary for the sustenance of a healthy marriage. Another misconception, and this one is also controversial, a woman's submission to her husband is based on how well he leads. Yes, in these discussions that I've been seeing on social media, many women will say that, hey, I want to be submissive. I can be a submissive woman, but a man needs to earn that. A man needs to be a certain type of way in order to inspire me to be submissive. And in my observation of women and just my previous relationships, or what I've been able to observe, is that you do have women who are predisposed to submission. Like, they are naturally in their feminine more so than other women who are just not predisposed to that. Their personality is just not that of a woman who is submissive. And this can be because of nature, or it can be because of nurture. So nature is, a person is just this way. This is just their personality, who they are naturally. Nurture is, a person is this way because of what they have experienced in life, because of some of the trauma, some of the hurt that they have gone through. Now, going forward into relationship, they're coming in with their guard up. They're coming in a bit defensive. They want to guard their hearts because they don't want to, fall prey to the consequences that can come from being submitted to the wrong man. And so they're looking for specific traits to tell them that, okay, this man is indeed a leader. But pretty much any man can be a leader, right? In his own right. Not everybody is going to be the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Not everybody is going to be CEO of a company. Not everybody is going to be a pastor or a deacon. Not everybody is going to, be a real estate developer, right? Some people are going to be janitors, and some people are going to own the janitorial company. Some people are going to be gas attendants, and And for most people who hold these positions, they're just probably just starting off in life. They're probably just trying to get themselves from one level to the next. But just because a person is in a particular position right now, that doesn't mean that they're not a good leader. That doesn't mean that they can't become a good leader. And so I don't believe a woman's submission is based on her husband being a good leader. Because you can have one man in his current dispensation who, to this woman, he is not a good leader. He doesn't know what he's about. He is not hardworking. He is not a man of integrity. And so she is having a hard time respecting him. But you take the same man and put him with another woman, and it's a totally different thing. He hasn't necessarily changed much. Probably he has changed his job. Probably he has changed where he lives. Probably he has changed what he eats. But he's still the same person to the core. And yet you find this woman over here being more submissive to him than this woman over here. Was it because he became a better leader? Or was it because the woman was over here, it just tends to be a bit more submissive, a bit more in her feminine, a bit less jaded by all she has experienced in life? In the same way, I want to also say that a man's leadership and a man being a good husband is not predicated on the fact that the woman be a submissive wife. Now, you see, when we get into this habit of blaming each other, oh, I can't be who I'm supposed to be as a wife because you're not what you're supposed to be as a husband. Or I can't be who you need me to be as a husband because you're not being what I needed to be as a wife. Yo, that is at the very core of a lot of relational problems, right? And why many couples find themselves in relational hell, where it's just conflict over and over, is because they keep blaming each other for their own shortcomings. But to fix the relational issues, oftentimes we have to take a look inside. We have to say, am I upholding my end of the bargain? Am I doing what I believe I'm supposed to do as a wife? Am I doing what I believe I'm supposed to do as a husband? Is there something that I'm lacking? Is there some information that I don't have that I need to garner so that I can change my attitude, I can change my behavior? And maybe if I can show unconditional love to my partner while playing my role as husband or wife, that may inspire them to then reciprocate the same energy onto me. I believe that's how we can fix our relational issues. However, if we maintain the mindset that a man has to be a certain type of way for me as a wife to be a certain type of way, then we're gonna have problems. Let us extend grace and mercy to one another as we are all on this journey, and none of us have arrived, and some people are further ahead than others. Some people have the privilege of growing up and observing their parents live together in relationship, while other of us don't have that privilege, and so we don't have a basis upon which to move off of when becoming a husband or a wife. Another misconception is if you have sex before marriage, your future marriage is doomed. Yeah. We're given the impression that our marital relationship is going to be awesome. It's going to be beautiful and amazing if we can just wait until marriage before having sex. But if we do have sex before marriage, then we're just setting ourselves up for doom and gloom and just all sorts of rubbish in our marital relationship. Now, having that understanding, maintaining that belief can definitely put you at a disadvantage once you get married. Because once you get married, you're supposed to be having sex without having to worry about guilt. You shouldn't have any guilt, right? You should be free to do what you want to do. However, if guilt is present, it will definitely affect the flow, right? And trust me, man, in the early stages of your relationship, you want that sex to be flowing effortlessly and regularly, because it's novel. It's novel for you and your partner, and definitely many men will want to have that flow happening. When a woman, is not fully present with her husband in the sexual experience, he will feel rejected. He will feel unattractive, and women will feel this way too if the husband, has that type of rejectional attitude towards her as well. Sexual intimacy is very important for the sustenance and the health of your marital relationship. And so if there is guilt that is influencing how you think about sex, then it will definitely show up in a negative way in your relationship. All right, so continuing on the whole idea of sex misconceptions, hardship in your marital sex life is because of past sexual immorality. Growing up in the church and learning that, we should not have sex before marriage. For those of us who have fallen short, for those of us who have ended up having sex before marriage, and we now come into our marriage and we're having some challenges where sex is concerned, we may be tempted to believe that this is no punishment for the fact that, we had sex with our girlfriend when we were teenagers. Or we might be tempted to believe that we're experiencing this because we and our wife had sex a month before the wedding. After trying to wait so long, we end up falling into temptation, and now we're married, and now things are just not going as smoothly as we believed they should, because we did our very best to uphold the standards, to obey the teachings that we had been taught while coming up in church. And because we sinned, we're now experiencing the backlash, the consequence. And I just want to debunk that. That's not true. All right? Sex is a very intricate thing. It's highly emotional. You are being highly vulnerable to your partner, right? Where you're being fully naked to this person is being fully naked to you. And so it can be awkward. Yeah. If you have a woman who is self-conscious and is not so much in touch with her sexuality, and has not really done much exploration of her sexuality, she'll possibly be very shy where sex is concerned, and probably not very explorative or very expressive where sex is concerned. While for many men in this day and age, we, on the other hand, have probably been a lot more explorative of our own sexuality, and we've probably indulged a lot more in porn. Porn is a thing that definitely is very prevalent in this day and age, where it is easily accessible. I mean, back in the day, you'd have to click a button to confirm that you're over the age of 18 before accessing the site. Now, from you type in the site, they're not even asking what your age is, right? It's just easily accessible. And so, for those of us men who have a certain expectation of our wives once we have gotten married, that expectation may be unreasonable. And that expectation may be the thing that is causing you to feel frustrated in your relationship. Also, for women who have grown up in the church, who have fought tooth and nail to maintain their sexual purity, once they get married, it's not like a switch just flips off in their mind that makes them now turn into this sexual vixen that now is just ready and raring to go all the time. And I'm sure for a lot of us men, we would definitely love and appreciate that, but that's just not the case. That's not the case. Unless you pair yourself up with a woman who is highly in touch with her body and her own sexuality, and is comfortable with her own sexuality and comfortable with exploring, and is very much in love with you and wants to express her sexual self through and through with you, unless you are with a woman who is like that, then, and even then, you may still have some difficulty there, where there may be differences in libido, where you have one person who has a higher sex drive than the other. Which brings me to my next misconception, that men always have a higher sex drive than women. That's a misconception. And so I know that can definitely cause confusion in many relationships. And it can cause some jealousy among men who are struggling to have regular sexual intimacy with their partner. We definitely are jealous of the men out there who have women who have a high libido, where they don't have to beg or plead or struggle to have sex with their partner, because their partner is most of the times ready and willing and raring to go. And so what produces that in a woman really? Is it nature or is it nurture? And I think it's a bit of both. I believe if you take a woman who is naturally expressive sexually and is naturally, probably didn't grow up in the church, probably doesn't have all these mental blocks where sex is concerned, probably isn't feeling guilty about her sexual past. If you take such a woman and put her in a relationship that she feels safe and she feels loved and she feels respected and appreciated, she's gonna definitely want to have sex on a regular basis. If you take a woman who is not experiencing pain during sex, meaning she is properly lubricated, naturally lubricated, not the KY jelly stuff or coconut oil or anything like that, but she's naturally lubricated and she's able to enjoy herself while having sex, she's gonna want it over and over and over again because it feels good. When it doesn't feel good for a woman, that's when now you'll have some difficulty. You'll have a woman who'll be like, you know what, it's neither here nor there to me. I can go an entire month without having it. It's not a big deal. Now you put that person in relationship with a man who needs it 3 times a week, it's definitely gonna be a challenge. But it's not because of your sin. It's not because you had sex before marriage. It's not because you told a lie this morning while you're having difficulty in your relationship. It may just because of difference in libido, which is a nature problem, or it may be because of past traumas, which is a nurture problem. Yeah? Another misconception: food and sex is enough to keep a man loyal. I've heard that a lot of times. Just feed the man and give him sex and he'll be fine. He'll be happy, he'll be good. And women, we try to keep things simple. We like things simple. We don't want to be as complicated as our female counterparts can tend to be. But as I've said before, we're both humans. Both men and women are human beings. And so what it may take to cause a man to feel, this man over here, to feel emotionally fulfilled, it may take something different for this man over here to feel emotionally fulfilled. And it doesn't make this man over here any less of a man than this man over here. So if this man over here is good with food and sex, and that's enough to keep him, that might not be enough for this man over here. This man over here might need some intimacy. He might need some conversation. Yeah? He may need some respect. He may need some companionship, like go with him to the football game or go with him to the gym. He may need that. Because you'll be surprised, you'll be over here giving this man food, sex, while he's over here forming a companionship with a woman who he met at the gym. And there you have an emotional affair that's brewing. even though he's getting the food and sex at home. So yeah, that's a misconception. I don't want us to simplify our relationships to just food and sex. Another misconception, and the final one for this video, women's periods always make them cranky. I tell you, I always believe this one. And oftentimes men get in trouble when their woman is a bit moody, a bit irritated, and they go, "Are you on your period?" And then she may just react even worse because he's making an assumption that she's on her period and that's why she's being moody, opposed to his behavior being the reason why she's moody or offended. And oftentimes we as men, we don't really see what we did wrong. We did something wrong, but we don't really know. For us, it was fine, but for the woman who is a lot more perceptive, she will definitely be more offended. In my experience, I have come across women who are not that greatly irritated in that period phase. I guess it really just boils down to what is their experience of you as a man. If during that period phase within the month, they are offended by you, then you're gonna get the wrath, you're gonna get the crankiness, you're gonna get the irritability of that woman. But if during that period phase they are totally enamored and totally in love with you, you might find that they're willing to be intimate with you even though they're bleeding, even though they're bloated. They will still want to be close and want to be warm toward you, all because of the fact that they are not offended with you at this time. And so with all that is going on within their body hormonally, their emotions may be heightened during this time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that their emotions have to be negative during this time. Yeah? So that's definitely a misconception that I want to debunk. Not all women are cranky and irritable during their period. But hey, that's it for all the misconceptions I have right now. There are definitely a whole lot more misconceptions out there, but I'm out of time on this video, and so I'll probably talk about it again in a future video. But hey, thank you so much for joining me for yet another episode of the worst relationship advice ever. You should definitely not listen, but what you should do, however, is like, comment, share, subscribe, yeah, so that we can get the viewership up. I would definitely want to have more discussions with you all. I definitely want to, have more engagement, as my real aim here, brothers and sisters in the Lord, is to just get you all to ponder, get you all to think, get you all to really apply what the Bible says to your lives in a real and tangible way, taking into consideration psychology, right? The Bible doesn't really get into psychology all that much, but if we can take our psychological understanding and bring it alongside our biblical understanding, we can now have a more fuller interpretation of what the scriptures are saying. Yeah? And if we can do that, trust me, we can have a lot more happy and healthy relationships. We can ensure that the divorce rate in the church is being reduced. And we can actually see the value of having Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, of having the Holy Spirit dwell within us. Yeah? Enough love and respect. Blessings to you and your family. Thanks again for watching and for listening. Later.